Is there any moment where you felt that a meeting, a phone call, a flight ride, and you thought this is the life?
Career is just part of life.
Who or what shaped you the most?
I'm extremely thankful to some tough bosses. You also learn from stupid people about what not to do. Every time I chose a new path at the crossroads, I have learned, I have grown, I have become a professional and a better person. If I'm taking a decision, I evaluate what is the worst consequence of it.
Keeping the end in mind actually reduces the fear most of the time.
Unless we test out.
Unless we test it.
Do I have it in me to turn around a company? So that was a question I asked myself, and I said we should give it a try before we hang up our phones.
Do we stick to the job or do we change the job? Not repeating the same job every year.
I believe we don't grow credibility or we don't develop credibility. I think we demonstrate credibility. You step aside from the forum, but go back to that person and tell him, today in this meeting, this part or this aspect of it, I didn't agree for this reason. The blame is much more than half on the locals who milked that multinational dry and not really did justice to the salaries.
What was the one decision that you really trusted?
Autonomy for the local team. Actual PDCA in motion. As a poetry, one first thing that I decided is performance culture. They say failures teach you much more than success. The guy screamed and said, do you know my chappal size? Standing up in a failure and facing consequences, I think it's more for people at the top. Be focused on the long term. Believe in what you're doing.
What's the one illusion about leadership that you want them to drop immediately?
Leadership is not just about being a CEO. And that to me is the illusion most of us carry. It's very lonely at the top. My best moments in my career, I always keep saying, was as a regional manager, not as the head of sales, not as a CEO of a company.
Welcome to the Talk Matters with Ravi, the space where we decode the success, not only with the textbooks, but with the real journeys, real mistakes, and the real leadership outcomes. I'm Ravi Manocha, your host today. I have an experience of over 2 decades in the automotive industry, but still learning mainly from the leadership, the people, the leaders who have run this path, who have run these tough roads. And I truly believe that today I'm sitting with one of such great leaders. Our guest today, rather I should say, our host today is someone who doesn't just appear into the case studies. He has rather created many of them. From steering the Volvo Group buses in India and shaping up Daimler commercial vehicles in India, he has built brands, he has built teams, he has built cultures, often from the scratch and in the uncertain times. What I admire most about is not about the titles he has gone through. It's about the leadership. It's about the clarity, courage, and credibility he brings onto the table. 3 things the most of the professionals are looking at. Mr. V.R.V. Sriprasad, welcome to the show.
Hi, Ravi. Nice to be with you.
I'm really excited to dive in, sir. I'm really excited to see how do you decode your success today in front of us, along with our viewers. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ravi. I really don't know if you should call it success, but definitely experience.
Definitely, sir. From your experience is our guiding path.
Thank you.
To start with, sir, little bit of a fun moment. If I meet you at the 20 years old V.R.V. Sriprasad, and I would have told you that one day you will be leading the global brands like Volvo and Daimler, the brands which are sitting in Europe but dreaming to come in India and set up the businesses here. Would you that time have told me that, have you seen a good movie and talking about a picture? Or is it something, a reality you were always keeping in the mind?
That's a question, a nice one. As a 20-year-old, I was in college, final year, doing my engineering. And at that time, the immediate focus was just to finish the course and get into some job. That was the only focus. At that time, we were fresh and probably we didn't have the sort of exposure people have today to be dreaming big and creating a clear career path and all that. But having said that, I was clear that I wanted to be or like to be in the auto space. Even when I got into engineering, I was very clear that I would like to be in the auto space. but definitely didn't have any idea or the perspective to think that big about a position or a responsibility or a name of a company. Definitely didn't have the perspective at that time to be thinking on those terms.
So I think you have actually taken the life as it is came and then steered it to the right place. That is what I take it from you.
In one sentence, I think you summed it very right. Yes.
So I would like to ask you, sir, is there any moment in your career, because you have taken a leap, from starting from one organization, jumping into the other, and then leading that organization in different ways? Is there any moment where you felt that, you know, a meeting, a phone call, a flight ride, when you sat and you thought, this is the life which I wanted?
Hmm. To me, I always, fortunately, realized very early that career is just part of life, one part of life. And as I evolved, life has thrown a lot of surprises at me, at everybody.
Yes.
Some pleasant and not some not so pleasant. So as I evolved, I have built that sort of a maturity to handle those situations and not get unduly disturbed with an unpleasant situation or get into a celebratory mode with something wow situation. So it's been more no great peaks or wow moments, or at least I've seen everything and accepted it as part of life.
So that's has been the way you have looked at the things, and I believe that is very important for anybody who's looking at starting his career and looking end from the beginning. So going forward, I would like to deep dive into your young area, your area where you started, when you actually were in the shape of 30s and 20s.
Mm.
Looking back, who or what shaped you the most at that point of a time? Because you come from a business family. So what shaped your early thoughts? Family, mentor? Were you having any boss which was very close to you? Or even the tough circumstances that actually allowed you to gather the courage that, yes, I want to reach these heights?
Okay, just to clarify, on one side, family is agricultural family.
Yeah.
The other side, it is service,
All right.
government service. So having said that, yeah, in terms of what shaped me, I don't think I'll do justice by naming one person. Family, friends, teachers, both at school and college, colleagues, bosses, definitely, yes. And I'm extremely thankful to some tough bosses because to live up to their standards and to their expectations, I had to dig in deep to satisfy their expectations. So I'm thankful to the tough bosses that I've had. I learned so much about my own self and my capability because of those tough bosses. And you also learn from stupid people about what not to do,
Absolutely,
what
sir.
not to do.
Absolutely.
But they stand out, if you ask me, in my career, the tough bosses helped me most.
So I think I'll catch one point from your conversation, which you said what not to do. And I believe in today's situation, the most important thing is not to only know what to do today. It's mainly to get rid of what to not to do.
Correct. Yeah.
And I believe if people who are listening to us will think at these areas, notify them, and start working on them, maybe that will help them more than what they're actually trying and catching up to do. Great learning from
Yeah,
different
you learn
examples.
from everybody.
Yes, sir. So moving ahead, I want to ask you, in the earlier career, uh, were full of crossroads. Many, when you are entering into a new career, when you are trying to shape up and design the way your career should go, you meet across various situations. And was there a moment which is, where you took taken a risk and that didn't fully make sense on the paper, but somehow changed everything? That risk has actually proven beneficial to you.
Let me go to your crossroads question first.
Yeah.
I think life is full of crossroads. In my career, too, I think I've left the trodden path to be at a crossroad intentionally by choice. And whenever I was at a crossroad in my career, which is many times, I have somehow consciously chosen the least trodden path or the most challenging path. if I was still clear about pursuing in a current path and with the future a bit assured, I still chose not to tread that path, but deliberately chose a more difficult, not I wouldn't say difficult, a new path. What people at that time would have said a risky path when everything is smooth. But somehow for me, I've always chosen that. And today, with great satisfaction, I would say right decisions. Because every time I chose a new path at the crossroads, I have learned, I have grown, I have become a professional and a better person.
I think a very important point, sir. Uh, Choosing a new path. In today's generation, everybody wants to move very fast, and people are trying to accept those paths which are done, dusted, and learned. But I also strongly believe that it actually takes them away from creativity. The kind of newness into the system, the kind of new discovery from the system goes away when we choose a path which has been driven by everybody and more predictable. And I believe that is very important. I would also, from my own curiosity, would like to understand that those moments of decisions when you try to choose between the path which is proven and the path which is relatively new. I'm not saying that it's always risky. Sometimes it's very risky, sometimes it's relatively less risky. So how do you configure your mind to look at that, okay, I am looking at this path because of reason A, B, and C. And I'm ready to bear the risks which are going to come with that. Because in the context, in the situation of the corporate today, we don't have that liberty many of the times. So how do you, because this decoding your thinking will help the listeners and the viewers to look at those scenarios when they are under the framework and they have to operate under them, but still they are able to choose a new path.
I don't really know if there was a great thought process and thinking over this. I always try and keep things simple. Uh, to me, the simple thing evaluation is I didn't have any matrix and all that. If I choose the current path, I see what is competition. There are 1,000 other people running with me.
Yes.
Okay. Now, 10 years from now, am I wanting to be one among those 1,000 fighting for something? Or am I going to equip myself with something better than the other 999? Maybe I sidestep. Sometimes it was seen as, not growing, sidestepping. Sometimes it was even seen as stepping back and letting go of a future career. I didn't see it that way. I was seeing it as I'm going to be, I don't want to be ending up with only a specific set of experiences or capabilities like others. I didn't have any milestone in mind to reach. Mine was more about, hey, this is a nice thing, why don't we learn? Okay. And another thing that you mentioned, phrase, people don't have the liberty to take risks now. I don't agree there. I don't agree. My simple, a litmus test was very clearly, if I'm taking this path, what is the worst thing consequence? I always use this. In any situation, if I'm taking a decision, I evaluate what is the worst consequence of this. In a crossroad, I would have said, I lose 3 years. I lose some, a salary part or a designation. That's the worst.
Yeah.
Okay. So once I said I am ready for that, once you picturize what is the consequence and internally accept it, then there's no risk at all.
Absolutely, sir. Apparently, I think we could decode from this is keeping the end in mind actually reduces the fear. So you have listed down the consequences. And what I take from this point is an imposter syndrome, which I have recently talked about, wherein we believe that we are not capable most of the time,
Unless we test ourselves.
unless we trust that. And I think that's the most important point out here. Thank you so much for taking us through this point, sir. So before your first big leadership role in India, what were you mainly focused towards? Building the capability in you, the credibility into the system, or the or gathering the courage?
Okay, let me answer one by one. Capability definitely yes. Even in the current whatever role I was in or function, asking questions, learning from others. Okay. uh, looking at new opportunities, being hands-on. These are some ways in which I improved my capability. Also, like your previous question, while at Crossroads, I made it a point to get into newer
Mm-hmm.
opportunities which were different from the path I was pursuing. So that helped me create a lot of capabilities. So my first job was as a designer,
Okay.
drafting and designing. So from which I moved into procurement, materials. Uh, From procurement, then I quit and moved into Asia Motors. I moved into projects, bodybuilding.
Right.
Yeah. Then there was an opportunity, or I fought for it and moved into marketing. Uh, then from marketing from Asia Motors, I quit and moved into a garment making unit, manufacturer,
Okay.
where I had to handle labor also. In fact, I very jokingly keep telling people my toughest job was that because I had to keep 400 girls happy. They were all teenagers, so very high energy, and
Yeah.
to keep them and get work from them was not easy.
Right.
So that was a great experience. I was a youngster and managing a workforce of 400, and that too women,
Mm-hmm.
young women, was not easy, but learned. So learned. So I was happy with that move that I made.
Mm-hmm.
Then again came back to marketing.
Mm-hmm.
Then into from a growing company into a Greenfield, where right from scouting for land, setting it up, recruiting people, you had to do things. So you get varied experience. If you're just part of a running company, then what you learn is a particular set of skills.
Yes. Yes.
But when you're setting up a new company, it's completely different. And this was by choice. And this was a drive in my mind because I used to think at Asia, we were with the company, we joined the company at a very early stage,
Mm-hmm.
and it is growing. It's now come to a joint venture with a multinational.
Absolutely.
All this is possible because somebody set this company up.
Yes.
We are just benefiting from it.
Right.
What does it take to set up a company?
Absolutely.
And then came an opportunity and I jumped.
Yes.
Uh, and I learned so much in setting up, creating products, uh, creating the organization, creating training, whatnot. And then when that was going good, and I thought, it was not something as an afterthought. Very early on in this greenfield, I set myself a target. When this greenfield reaches this sort of a milestones in terms of running smoothly,
Mm-hmm.
that'll be the time for me to quit. And I set some milestones. And to be specific, 30 dealerships in place,
Mm-hmm.
1,000 number volume every month, and 10,000 vehicles on the road. That reached, and I moved. And I moved into something which was challenging because I had never had an opportunity of reviving a non-profitable sick company.
Absolutely.
And here was an opportunity with Volvo.
Right.
So I said, now I've learned how to set up a greenfield. I learned so many skills. My capability is better. Do I have it in me to turn around a company?
Mm-hmm.
So that was a question I asked myself. And I said, we should give it a try before we hang up our boots. And that's where I come in. And having turned around to Volvo, I could have easily continued. Then that would have become my comfort. I gave everything up and started getting into living life as a small time farmer. And I'm still learning. I'm still learning.
I think amazing, sir. The listeners are really making sense of it. Starting from a designer, going into the purchase, then doing bodybuilding,
Right.
and after that, a complete turn going towards a garment manufacturing,
Yes, I was in garment manufacturing for 2 years.
steering the team of 400 women, and then, of course, taking the work out of them and moving into a greenfield project of a European brand.
Yes.
And I believe that most of the time, there's a question of complacency which holds us. As you rightly said, you could have easily, a turned around company, you would have easily done your career with that, even getting extended and moving forward. But you chose different paths, and most of the times. And I think that's life.
It is. And from my experience, so what I used for my own self as the time to move,
Mhm.
you said some call it complacency.
Yes.
For me, it's a stopping of learning and complacency. I would put a period, this is very generic. I'm not being specific, and this might not apply to everybody. Uh, Depending on what level you are,
Mm.
between 2 to 4 years is a time period beyond which
Yeah.
one should not stick to that position.
Right.
They should find something new to reinvent
Right.
themselves.
Well, I think so. That's the curiosity. And I believe that there is a kind of a saying and there is a kind of a dilemma wherein people say that do we stick to the job or do we change the job? And I believe I heard from you, it's not about only changing the job, it's changing the role, which is very important. Not repeating the same job every year
Correct.
is an extremely important
Important.
part of this.
Yeah, so that's on capability.
Yes.
So coming to credibility, I don't think, I believe we don't grow credibility or we don't develop credibility. I think we demonstrate credibility.
Mm.
We demonstrate credibility by walking the talk,
Mhm.
by delivering on the commitments and promises that we have
Yes.
made.
Yeah.
And then not only to the management, you also have to demonstrate credibility to your own team and to other stakeholders too. And
Right.
that's by walking the talk and meeting your commitments and being consistent about it.
It's a very important point which you have touched upon, sir, to your team, because often we kind of move away with the thought that we are also responsible towards the team.
Yes, very
Credibility is not only to be shown to the management. A team should feel like they're gathered, they're together, they're working towards an objective, and there is a figure, there's a leader who shows them the path. And I believe that's one of the very important aspect viewers should look at. They should actually look at that they have to intact this kind of credibility amongst the lower stakeholders.
correct.
Yeah.
All stakeholders.
All stakeholders.
The last one you mentioned was courage.
Courage.
Courage to me is born out of your value system.
Absolutely.
Okay. So courage is speaking your mind out, uh, calling a spade a spade. Some say you need to be politically right and all that. Yes, you might not say something which might hurt people. But when you believe something is right,
Mm.
not saying it is not okay. Not saying it because it might hurt people, especially stakeholders down the line, is still acceptable. But if you believe that by saying something it will hurt your own chances,
Mm.
I think that is not okay.
Not okay.
Not okay.
Yes.
So courage is standing up and speaking out and saying what you think is right. You could be mistaken. You could be branded. There could be a lot of consequences which are not so good for you.
Right.
But in the long term, I think it will earn you a lot of respect. A lot of respect.
Right. So we see, sir, today in the new generation, of course, we talk about Gen Zs and X and all of them, and we see that the courage is going up day by day. There are people having clarity, and they've been taught in the schools, they've been cultured in a way that they should come up. They should come up and put forward their point of view, which is very important. But when we spend some time into the corporate culture and structure, at times we get aligned. Is courage always going away from the alignment? Or is courage something which gives you a power of putting your point up front without getting, deviated from the overall system and aligned? So many times people think that their thought is taking them away from the alignment of the system. And that's why they don't actually put this courage across. Or they would like to carry along. I got a statement very clearly from you. It is not right. But does it mean that everyone or anyone in the system should have that kind of uh, temperament or mentality to always question the system?
There is two things about courage. One is the basic, if you think something is right, that you need to speak up.
Yep.
The second part is in the execution or how you demonstrate courage.
Right.
There you need to be a bit, I wouldn't say politically right, but bit polite to people in how you bring up and tell them that you disagree with them.
So it's getting agree to getting disagree is very important.
Yeah, or many times if you think the forum that you are in
Mhm.
is not the right place, the other person might find it humiliating
Mhm.
or hurting. Then at such times, it's not that you're not doing what your mind tells you.
Mhm.
You step aside from the forum, but go back to that person and tell him, today in this meeting, this part or this aspect of it, I didn't agree for this reason. However, I felt it won't be proper on my part to bring it up there. That's why I'm coming and telling you. I think that would be a better way.
I think, sir, it is a golden word. I would rather say that this kind of a situation we come across every day. And there is a kind of a dilemma in the boardrooms. There's a kind of dilemma in the meeting rooms, in the formal setups where people are available. We see many times people talk emotions, and they're carried away with those emotions. This is a gem of a inspiring word, that when you are actually looking at the context, and then you feel that the context, in that context, going away from the system doesn't allow you, or it is not appropriate, set aside and give your point of view, which is very important. Thank you so much for this word, sir. We go to the next set of topics, sir, wherein we talk about the leadership at a scale. uh, you have you have nurtured the global brands in India. What we see from the Indian perspective, when we look inside out, the global brands in India means PowerPoint presentations, a lot of showcase slides from Europe, but at the same time, the reality is from India. You don't have anything which is already set it up. There are rough things, Indian highways. So how did you balance global standards with the Indian jugaad, without losing the sleep?
This is a good question. And yes, we face this.
Yeah.
I would say that, any multinational that comes into India, not just in the auto space, any multinational that comes into India and whatever industry they are, this is an important issue that will
Yeah.
come up. Okay. From my experience, having worked with a couple of multinationals, most of them come into India with a colonial attitude. Okay, for want of a better word, I'm using it.
Okay.
Okay, uh, as multinationals, they are present across the globe in most of the countries.
Yes.
They have access to many of the markets, and they are successful in most markets.
Yes.
Okay, uh, so it is a sort of a colonial attitude that the olden colonial rule was that you came to annex the land and to do trade. Now they forget the land; they're just coming here to do the trade,
Right.
and this is absolutely legal now.
Yes.
But the mindset that they have is that India is just one more market. We have seen Latin America, we have seen Africa, we've seen Far East Asia, we've seen Japan. So India is just one more market for us.
Yes.
So we know what to do. Whatever has worked in the rest of the world should work for us in India. Why do we need any advice, or why do we need to do anything new at all? And this comes from years of conditioning based on experience. They've been successful doing the same thing somewhere else. So I don't blame them. They come with this mindset to India. But unfortunately, India is different.
Yes.
India is, in terms of political entity, one country,
Yeah.
but in terms of culture, practices, climate, geography, we are a continent.
Right.
Things are so different. Even as an Indian 60-year-old, I can't claim, and I don't think any one of us can claim that we know complete India.
Yes.
We are also learning as exposure goes.
Right.
Okay. But we are better off than some MNC guy coming here saying, I know what will work in India.
Yeah.
So first and foremost is for us in a multinational, for the locals who get on board on the multinational in the very initial startup time, very important to be first self-aware of your own knowledge, capability, and this thing that you know India better than those guys who are coming. They might be the bosses, but
Right.
you need to be self-aware and have that, self-consciousness and, this thing that you know better. Number one. Number two, you also need to understand that they having picked you or chosen you, it's now your responsibility to tell them and make them learn what works for India.
Absolutely.
Okay. Most of the time, unfortunately, most of the time I see our people, youngsters and senior people who come on board in multinationals, uh, think that their life objective is over because they are now been picked by a multinational, and then just get in there and see it as a golden cage for retirement and blindly do what they tell you to do. And that is why most of the, especially in auto field, most of the multinationals who have come have had to go back and lick their wounds. The blame is only half on the multinationals for not understanding India. The blame is much more than half on the locals who milked that multinational dry and not really did justice to the salaries they got. Knowing fully well what India is,
Right.
but not telling them and then blindly towing their line because all they wanted was a job and a security and salary.
Yeah.
That is how most of the multinationals have failed. Of course, the product and the offerings were not okay, but basic blame I will put it on the locals. So this was something
Yeah.
which I was clear about.
Right.
So for a 100-year-old company and guys coming with the mindset that we have worked in different parts of the globe, automatically they're not going to be agreeing to what you say.
Right.
So like the earlier topic that we had, credibility
Credibility.
and then the courage.
Yes.
So credibility, initially you need to demonstrate by sharing with them, and then they're seeing what we said is true, and then build your credibility, and then get that respect from them.
Right.
And then again, when they are trying to push certain things through, and if you think that's not good for the company, having the courage to stand up and say no. Okay. This done, then they start understanding, start accepting, start listening to you.
Correct.
So that was one of the first things that I had to do. And I was very happy with what we achieved. Sensitizing the
Global brands.
global guys
Yeah.
to what is India, what
India.
works in India.
So I think, sir, amazing. Very, very importantly decoded the area where we are good and where we are lacking. And I think ages to come and years to come, people sitting here, while because it's a global world, working in India and even going out to work in the different countries, it's a clear message. They have to adapt to the local requirements and needs. Every country is different, needs are different. It's a duty of the person who is on to the last end to make the entire system understand which works for the company. Thank you so much for delivering this. Definitely a good talk, sir. Sir, at Volvo buses, what was the one decision that you really, really trusted? Because this was an organization you wanted to turn around. So not just as a leader, but as a human being also, you thought that, it's very important for this organization.
Autonomy for the local team.
Yeah, absolutely. Perfect.
That was something which to me was very important, and hygiene if we were to grow.
Right.
Forget turning around and all.
Right.
Turning around we could have anyway done.
Yeah.
So this is something which often got me into discussions, leading to even sometimes
Arguments.
with headquarters.
Yeah.
The team here was capable,
Right.
and there could have been they were capable of doing much more.
Yeah.
And having seen in Daimler how the headquarters could benefit from local capabilities, and here that not seeing that happen was something I wanted to fight for.
Right.
For local autonomy for us.
Yeah.
Decision making on
Absolutely.
localization and stuff like that.
Right.
So that got me into a lot of I wouldn't say bitterness, but definitely a lot of hard discussions, and sometimes I know it was not appreciated.
Yeah. So I think there the courage comes in.
Yeah.
So, and it was very important, as you said, that it is one of the important pillar, it's important value. And I think when we do the daily conduct, it's most important and most difficult to keep the value near us. So, if we keep the value near us, we always think through the value and filters it, I think our decisions are going to be always right.
Yes.
When moving to the Daimler India CV, sir, it was a greenfield project. So you built culture, people, process, purpose, everything from zero. It was from scratch. You have touched upon, in your initial career and the transition. But what was the first non-negotiable which set you as a leader? Anything which is you feel that no, this is something I have to do when I'm starting the organization from the greenfield.
I'd like to mention a couple of things. As I said, as a culture, I had to sensitize the Daimler guys to what works in India. But the little that I was working with them, I also understood their strengths. phenomenal planners,
Hmm.
which I think Indians can match and can do better also.
Okay.
But the difference in between them and us was that outstanding executioners. Having a plan is one.
Right.
Executing that is a second.
Most difficult part.
No, for us Indians, we find it a difficult part. But for them, it was just one more aspect which had to be done.
Of the process.
Plan is one. Okay, now execute.
Okay.
Now, while executing it, tracking, and then finding what's right, what's wrong, what needs to be done. To me, working in Lucas, I share a lot of Japanese culture, TQM methods, and all PDCA we were aware of. Actual PDCA in motion as a poetry, not just motion, in poetry.
In the poetry.
I
Flowing
could see
freely.
it, I could see it here. So, for me to establish to my team the Indian side of it, one first thing that I decided is performance culture. Performance only matters, nothing else.
Nothing.
No more discussion.
Right.
This year target, you have given me a commitment, now it has to be done.
Yeah.
Simple. No excuses. No excuse. Find your ways and means of doing it. And I believe that it can be done.
Yes.
It's reasonably easy to do.
Yeah.
So no discussion later. Performance culture. So as a principle, as a culture, as a
Performance
hygiene to
must.
set in, that was something with the Indian side I pushed. At least all the teams that were reporting to. With them, it was about sensitizing them. How it reflected is very clearly in specs, in products and services. When I remember one of the initial discussions about deciding on what should be the engine for India. At that time, we still had one of the companies with 115 horsepower for a truck, heavy duty truck, and the other one had just moved to 175 horsepower. And these guys were decided on 450 horsepower and 520, around that range, 400 to 500 range. So for me, the task was very clearly to balance. I can't blindly ape the Indians. We need to upgrade the market. So we chose the 230 and 280 horsepower. And it was a major climb down for them from their own specs. But then in retrospect, in hindsight today, I think very wise decisions.
Absolutely.
We not only upgraded the market with everybody else following and moving up their engine specs, but we were able to hold good also for 12. I think they're still holding good.
They're still holding good because it's a quite distinct.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that was one. I have an interesting discussion I had about sensitizing them and balancing out, on which I compromised.
Okay.
Warranty at that time for the engines in India used to be 100,000 kilometers.
Yes.
Okay. So beaten life.
Right.
So once we chose the engine, 230, 280 horsepower. So they said, okay, it comes with a beaten life of 1 million kilometers. I said, but today we have competition giving 100,000 or 1 million is 10 times more.
Correct.
So I said, okay, get it down to 500,000, which is more than enough.
Yes.
Okay, I remember the head of R&D, after there's complete silence, then the head of R&D stood up and said, Sri, we're sorry, my R&D is refusing to do it, cannot do it. We have always been setting targets for them to take the beetle life up.
Yeah.
They don't know how to get it down. So can you live with
Right.
1 million?
1 million. Yeah.
So I was more than happy with that,
Yeah. Sometimes, we learn from both sides. Yeah. And that's important. And that sets the new standards. And of course, being open to listen to the right points is always very important for the leadership. And be receptive, be understanding, and evaluating it before taking any decision is the way to go.
But not just for Daimler. I think for India, the biggest lesson from Daimler, I would say, is performance culture. We can benefit from it. We have to adapt it as hygiene in any work that we do. Any work, any industry, anywhere that it has to be there.
So I think note it. And the major point out of this is that the first basic principles to stick around is performance, because the company exists is performance.
Correct.
So I believe that going forward, the listeners who are viewing us, are going to look at delivering the performance as the ritual,
Okay.
not only as one of the KPI and criteria of the company. And that's a great advice, sir.